Well, here in the UK, I asked a former Labour politician and a former UKIP member of European Parliament about what the French election result could mean for the UK and the EU. Here's what Stephen Wolfe, who used to be a UKIP MEP, said about what a Le Pen win could mean for the European Union.
Although there is a huge swell of anti-EU feeling, I don't believe it's to the levels that you've got in the UK that drove the Brexit campaign. What I think she'll do is she'll try and be much more inflexible to the European Union's ideas of more centralisation. I think she will certainly be challenging them on big issues that she sees as important. One of those is what we're discussing, immigration. I think she'll be more open to other countries in the world in terms of initial negotiations, providing it sets down a number of what will be her red lines in politics. And that will be to try and improve the constituents who voted for her and be a very much more pro-France agenda. So in relation to the European Union, I think it's going to be testy for them, without a doubt. She will try and push them to certain boundaries and maybe approach that of the way that the Poles have done rather than the Hungarians, who have decided to put very pro-Polish policies in place. And if the European Union challenges them, allow the European Union to do so, but not wither or wane, just keep challenging and keep pushing on with their own policies.
We've seen France and the UK, they have been under strain before because of this Channel migrant issue. Do you think that relationship would change if Le Pen was to win the election? And is there anything we should be concerned about?
No, I don't think fundamentally the French-British relationship over the Channel migrants will change dramatically, whether it's Le Pen or Macron. First and foremost, immigration is a huge issue in the French election, and the coastal areas is one of the battlegrounds for both the political leaders. And immigration has caused both the western coast from Calais all the way up to the borders have been proven very difficult to try and shift some of the underlying problems of immigration there. So if one of them became alive to the idea that they would allow Channel migrants to be turned back and brought back to French shores, that would be a negative for them in this election.
Well, as we know, Macron is ahead in the polls, and here's what a former Labour Minister for Europe had to say about the future of the UK-France relationship.
Boris Johnson is the prisoner of the expectations he creates himself. He says, elect me, I'm a tough guy, I'm going to take us fully out of Europe, we'll get Brexit done, and that will solve all the problems. Well, no, it doesn't, because you can't stop refugees from the conflicts, the failed states that Britain has helped to create, in Iraq firstly, and then in Syria and Libya, with other countries. I'm not just saying it's UK's fault. France takes far more refugees than we do. So it's been a cause of irritation, especially when Mr. Johnson or British ministers blame the French, as if the French could turn off the asylum seekers. I'm afraid, unless you put 500,000 French soldiers patrolling the beaches of France, and the Germans couldn't stop the Allies arriving in Normandy, it's not going to happen. So again, this is all the language that Boris Johnson's been used to use to get to power, French bashing, Europe bashing. But when you're in power, that language just doesn't work very more. And now you have to have real relationships with real governments. What I hope is that both men, assuming Mr. Macron's re-elected on Sunday, both men jerk themselves out of the kind of tram lines they're in, which are separating France and Britain, and actually say, let's go for a new entente cordiale, an entente amicale, a friendly entente. Let's build a new relationship between France and Britain, because frankly, France and Britain snarking and sniping and sneering and criticizing each other is no help to either country, no help to Europe, no help to the broader Euro-Atlantic alliance, which is now under real pressure from Putin, from Xi in China, and from all the kind of strongmen politicians around the world who don't respect normal democratic rules.
Well, Dover, where I am, has been in the news recently, particularly because of the migrants crossing the Channel from France to the UK in small boats or dinghies and making that risky trip, especially when it's good weather. I spoke to some of the people here about what they think about the election.
Right, well, I hope the French people have some common sense and vote in Le Pen. She literally is for France and not just for ego. Macron has tried long enough and he hasn't succeeded, so a bit of fresh blood for the French will do very nicely.
And how do you think a Le Pen presidency would impact the UK? I know because there's obviously the issue with immigration that people in Dover face every day. So do you think it will make a difference?
I don't really know. I mean, most politicians promise an awful lot and don't exactly deliver, but time will tell. She can't do any worse than Macron.
You know, I've always taken the French to be much more politically intelligent than voting for somebody like Le Pen. She's very pro-Russia. She's I just find it absolutely astounding that it could even be an issue in France. I've always taken, I had close working relationships with France before my retirement, and it's not the France that I understand. And what will be the effect? Well, I don't know if she was elected, whether there would be a move to sort of try and do a, should we call it a Frexit? But that would be bad. That would be bad.
I don't think it impacts us too much. I know we have the port and customs thing in Dover, and there has been, when he stopped everyone going through, that kind of put the town to like gridlock. But I think that was also a bit expected with Brexit. I don't think it will impact us too greatly here.
So those were three very different views from the streets of Dover, and it's worth noting that people here voted for Brexit in 2016, and Le Pen, of course, has recently said that she's not going to go for a Frexit. The polls in France are tipping in favour of Macron, and we'll of course find out the final result on Monday. Jane Werrell, NTD News in Dover.